good? Cool. Okay. All right. Welcome, everyone. Welcome to that session. So today I'm going to talk about Sitecore Components, and I'm going to explain why this tool is great for your marketers. So before we start, today's agenda will be in three folds. First, I'm going to explain high level what is Sitecore Components. Then I'm going to explain why this is great for your marketers. And third part, I'm going to give you some tips on how you can kickstart your journey with Sitecore Components. So just a little bit about myself before we start. So my name is Hugo. I have 20 years of experience in digital, more than 7 years with Sitecore in different landscapes, in different industries with many different clients. I'm a 3-time Sitecore MVP. Some of us might know me because I'm also the creator of the Sitecore Author Toolbox, extensions for Google Chrome. I'm also leading the SUGCON group, something that we have resumed last year with two of my friends. Ram is here. He's leading that with me, and Miguel, which is still in France. I live in Paris, and I'm currently having the position of product manager for a small company which is named Perfection.dev. So let me start with a story that most of us might have faced in our experience. It starts like this. A client comes to you and say, hey, we need to launch this landing page in 2 days. Sounds familiar now? So that's something I faced quite often in my experience, right? So here is the story. So the product owner or your client coming into the office and say, we need that page, we have this campaign, everything is ready on our end, the marketing, social medias are ready. We really just need to create a simple page on our website. It's just a matter of putting some components and then launch the page so we can be ready in 2 days. So you're like, okay, fine. So do you have a design? We need the brief. We need to look into it, and we'll get back to you with some estimates. That's usually the typical case. So you take the brief, you look at first the design, you look at that with your team, and you figure out that, okay, actually it's a little bit more complicated because the designers are using a component, but in a slightly different way that you have built them. Maybe you have an extra field that is not there. So you will need to add that field. Maybe there is another component that's brand new. Doesn't exist. So end of story is that actually you will get back to your client and say, we need development for that. We need to go through the cycle of sprints. We need to go through refinements, estimate, build, deploy that to multiple environments, like QA, test it, and go to production. So it's most likely that it won't be achievable in 2 days, right? Also because you're in the middle of sprints, and you can only deploy at the end of the sprint when the release will be ready. This problem, I think most of us have faced that, and it leads to frustration. Frustration for your clients, for sure, but frustration for you as well. Because the reason is why everything will be frustrated is this will drive to a lack of confidence in your team because the clients might think, okay, those guys are not able to deliver on time. Also, the client might think, okay, this tool is not even flexible. We cannot just launch a page in 2 days when we have a new campaign. And everyone is trying to find a mitigation plan, which is most likely something like, let's look at what we have. We will lower our expectation. We will revise the way the landing page is designed, and we'll just adapt to what we have. Even worse, they might say, we're going to use another tool to create that page because it's faster. So let's ditch Sitecore, and we'll do that with something else. That's not what we want, and I think that's where Sitecore were very clever at releasing this new product, which is Sitecore Components. What is Sitecore Components? So in few bullet points, I'm not going to deep dive into it because there is another sessions today by Sebastian Winter. I think he will show you guys lots of examples of how you can use this. But mainly, this is a visual component builder, like a WYSIWYG tool that marketers can use. It's a no-code, low-code solution, so you don't need any skills in coding. There is integrated to it a design system tool, theme manager, which I think it's a very important part of the product, something that I haven't heard too much so far, but I will explain why this is great. There is also the ability to map some content from, of course, Sitecore, but from external sources, which is great for the first time. You will be able to build components and import content from external sources. This is a front-end as a service fully integrated with XM Cloud and Pages. And this is available to all XM Cloud customers are as early access, meaning that the product is still in development, still going on, but at least if you have access to XM Cloud, you can start experimenting and playing, and why not pushing some product and pages with Sitecore Components. Let me deep dive a bit into the different features. I would point 4 features. So the theme builder, this is a great tool for creatives. Why that? Because actually each brand has their own design system, right? They have their branding. They want everyone to follow the brand guidelines. With that tool, creatives will be able to create a theme with all the fonts, colors, typographies that the brand is using, the margin spacing, the shadow eventually, and everything will be set up in a theme that will be used by a component, meaning that the guys who will be responsible of creating components doesn't have to think about the design, because everything will be coming from that theme. In addition, you can create multiple themes, meaning that you can have one theme for a specific site, another one for another site, and so on, and you can actually use different themes for another site. So that's pretty cool. The third part, the data sources. So there is 2 ways of consuming data with Sitecore Components. You can either consume XM Cloud data, of course, but you can also consume external data. So any content provider that you have in your company that has APIs, you can use that to fetch those data and use that with components. Let's say you have a PIM system with products. You are using Content Stack, Contentful, anything else. You can use those APIs to fetch the data and pull the content into components, which is actually great. For the first time ever, it's super easy to consume content from external sources and put that into Sitecore Components. Of course, you have the component builder. So that's the point-and-click tool. It's super easy to use. You start from a blank Canva, or you can start from an existing component. From here, you will just define the layout of the component, not the design part, just the layout. You will define how many columns you want to have, whether you want to have the image on the right side, left side, foreground, background, whether you want a CTA, title, subtitle, and so on. It's up to you. It's just all visual with that WYSIWYG editor. The last part of that tool, that's the publishing and versioning, which is also great for managing different versions of your components. There is this logic of pushing your components, a collection of components through different states. Like if you have a staging environment, production environment, so you can promote components to different environments and test them beforehand. And last, of course, but not least, that's the integration with XM Cloud and Pages in particular. So for those who knows Pages, you already have the Components tab when you want to insert a Sitecore component, SXI component. But now you have this front-end as a service tab. That's where you will be able to retrieve all the components previously created in Sitecore Components and drag and drop them in your page. It's easy as that. It's super great. Everything is there on the same interface and super easy to use. So, why this is so great for digital marketers? First thing first, of course, ability to create components without relying on developers. Yeah, you can just do it by your own. You don't need any development. You create the component, it's available in XM Cloud. You compose your page and you publish. Ability to create variants of components. Let's say you have front-enders or designers who have created some components. You can easily create variants and build on top of that. No code skills required, no design skills required, because everything is coming from the theme. And of course, you can quickly launch new pages and components. So think again about my example, the first story I had. With that tool, that would be a very different story, right? Also for the dev team, who is usually responsible of building those components, they can now focus on something that has real value rather than just spending more time on building the X variant of that component that the customers want, right? Okay, but this is also great for digital creatives. I talk a lot about themes, but yes, you can create and import a design system in that tool. I really expect at some point to have Sitecore implementing a Figma import tool. Maybe you can work with design tokens in the future. That would be great. Let's see. Creatives can define rules, colors, fonts, etc. They can make sure that everyone stays on brand. That's the most important. Creative doesn't want everyone to play with your themes and do whatever they want in terms of design. And it empowers business users to make design changes, right? So all in all, for creative, they can spend more time in doing other creative stuff. And again, not just doing X variation of that component in Figma or Sketch and hand over that to you and build that in Sitecore. This is a game changer for organizations. But yes, with great power comes great responsibilities, right? It's a real change. So you need to structure your team and your organizations to be able to work with that. It's a very different mindset. And this is my text. This is my recommendation. So if you want to start with Sitecore Components, I would advise you to start by creating a core team. Mainly, you will need one PM, a digital creative lead, a front-ender, and a tech lead in that team. Those guys will be responsible of building the foundation of all the things you're going to build in Sitecore Components. Once this is set up, they will hand over that part to the content team. The content team is part of course, you will have digital marketers, content creator. You can have a little bit support from front and back end if you want, but all the person who are responsible of creating content will be in that team. They will be the one who will use that tool. So it's really important to anticipate that and really build the foundations of what you want to do with Sitecore Components. Otherwise, you will end up with many different themes, not well managed, and many different look and feel for your components. Not an happy client for sure. In terms of how you can kickstart your journey, it's basically the same approach, but with the timeline. So what needs to be done first? You need to create a theme, of course. So the creative lead will do that. Then backend, maybe with help of frontend, will create the data sources, whether it's external or can you also use static JSON file if you want, if you have some content. They will also be responsible of mapping the fields of your external content with the fields that you have in components. Frontenders could at least create a handful set of components that marketers can start work with, like hero banner, promo cards, you name it, all the components that we have on our website. And the fourth box is it's very important, of course. This team will be responsible of documenting, testing, and validate the approach because, of course, they will have to hand over that part to the content creator, and also those guys need some trainings and documentations. You don't want them to let them go with that tool and do whatever they want. You need to guide them, right? Even though they will have the structure in the tool, they also need to be empowered and understand how this tool works, right? So training is also important, documentation is important. Do that, and you will most likely be successful in using that tool. All right, that's the end of my presentation. So takeaways from today. It's a great tool. More than that, in my opinion, it's a collaboration tool. It empowers business users to create and make change rapidly. Allows design consistency. Everyone stays on brand. This allows is integration with external content, which is also something new, something that was always hard to achieve. And the final goal, it minimizes the time to web, which is what we were looking for at the beginning, if you remember my story. Thank you. That's it for today. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. Otherwise, you can reach out to me on social media, Twitter, Slack, LinkedIn, however you want. Thank you. Do you have time for questions? Maybe someone has some questions. Feel free. Yeah. Sorry. Oh, can you repeat, please?
Any limitations?
I mean, limitations will come from the tools. Of course, you cannot achieve everything that you need in terms of design. There is a structure that you need to follow when you compose components. You have this column grid system that you need to follow. So if you have crazy creative stuff, it's most likely that it will be hard to achieve. One thing that I didn't mention, you can also manage breakpoints. So you can also adapt your component visualizations based on different breakpoints, which is very important for mobile, tablet, and so on. So you really control how your components will look like on different devices. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Yeah.
When you show the fetching data from URL in Graph API,
Yeah.
when does that happen?
understood that, there is two steps. So first step, you fetch the structure, the JSON structure, that will give you all the fields that you can use in your components. That's what I show you there. And then when you use the components, there is a notion of consuming the data dynamically from that endpoint. It's on the page, as far as I understand. Maybe people from Sitecore can elaborate on that.
Very stupid question. If I understand your presentation, does it mean that I don't need Next.js and static website, and then I can do page components just only in Sitecore?
Yeah, you can do that in Sitecore. Then it's up to you to have any technology that you want for your website.
My user will hit the Sitecore Edge server directly there. So not only to get the data, but at least the structure and then the data also.
Yeah, for the publishing part, I have not so much information, but maybe I don't know if I have people from Sitecore who wants to elaborate on that. But, cool. More questions? Thanks, everyone. Enjoy your stay. Bye-bye.